Hello, I'm Atlas, and welcome to the Atlas Source. As I had told you on the last video, that on the 9th, I don't know when you're going to be watching this, but the 9th of July, I'd be broadcasting a video discussing Resident Evil and how it holds up to the world it created back in 1996. Well, in the previous week, I had played from start to finish this very game, Resident Evil Director's Cut. Sadly, it was a digital download off the PlayStation Network, but it was still the full game nonetheless. And it got me thinking about a lot of things. For one, a lot of people's biggest complaints with the latest installments is that they went from being survival horror all the way down to just being action shooters. But when you think about it and play games back from that genre, it's easy to get nostalgic about how they used to be. And of course, how they feel nowadays. Before this, I'd always been a big fan of the Resident Evil Director's Cut game. I had played it when I was 5 years old, 6 years old. It scared me shitless back then, but nowadays, I found it laughable. But to discuss Resident Evil back then, we first have to discuss Resident Evil now. Starting off with Resident Evil 6, back in 2012. A lot of people claim it was a big flop, that it didn't hold up to the name, it didn't hold up to the genre that Resident Evil and Capcom, especially Shinji Mikami, created for the franchise. It was supposed to be a survival horror game, originated back in the aspects of jump scares and freaking you out, get inside your mind. Back then, in 1996, we didn't have many survival horror games, none at all to be exact. For the MS-DOS, of course, we had Alone in the Dark, back in 1992. Before Resident Evil, even that, back in 1989, we had, which some people believe to be the original Resident Evil game, or the predecessor, Sweet Home, also made by Shinji Mikami. Not Shinji Mikami. It was a predecessor during the Capcom era back in 1989. Even so, the same connections between the mansion, the loading screen being the opening of the closing of the doors, or the stairs going up and down, had a lot of similarities. So it was known to be the original predecessor to Resident Evil. But to be honest, it did a great job. I mean, back in 1996, it was the best. It was the scariest. The case alone, the first case you had was Chris Redfield with a shotgun, and it was defined. After that, 1 year later, the release was the Director's Cut version, which was the one my brother and I played. My brother Anthony. And whew, even back then, that case was just scary as hell. I mean, it was just a zombie with his neck turned looking up. Like, the part in the game, I don't know if anybody here has played it, or even recently remember what I'm talking about, the first time you see a zombie when he's eating the body, and he just turns and looks up. That was the front of the case. And it caused a lot of scares. It caused a lot of turns. I mean, I remember as a kid, I could play the game, but if I looked at the case, I got freaked out. I had to flip it and turn it upside down. It was magnificent. It was a great game, but what was more interesting is the games that followed. Yes, it was survival horror. It was jump scares, zombies coming through the doors, but it was also a lot more. A lot of the biggest complaints is that it's action-oriented. Anybody who's played the original Resident Evil games know that even though there are a lot of scary parts, it's mainly a puzzle, action, horror game. As long as you have puzzles, and by puzzles I don't mean move this block over here and stack this there, the other. I mean, it had something like that, but it was more like this door is locked. You need a key with a helmet on it. Later on, you find a key with a helmet on it. Oh, I can unlock this door now. Or, personally, the one I laughed at the most, you need the sun crest. So you go into this room that has the sun crest. And there's the chest. And there's a button on the floor. There's 2 vents. And there's 2 statues. It was so amazing. All you had to do was put the statues on top of the vents. And you press the button. If the vents are covered up, no poison could get through. And slid open comes the sun crest. Back then, that was the pinnacle for puzzles. That was the best we had. And for a 3D game, I mean, it was amazing. It was 1996. The only games we had compared to were Crash Bandicoot, which was a game that featured 2 Aztec masks, untalkable protagonists, and crystals with a doctor who listened and wanted to control the world, and his only enemy was a bandicoot. And then you got Resident Evil, a game with intricate storyline. I mean, it created a world that lasts even today. But I digress. It was still the same game nowadays that it was back then. It's just the idea of how big it impacted our lives back then to what it is now is amazing. One of the biggest complaints I've heard from a lot of people is that the game is nothing like what it used to be. But when you think about it, back when it was the same game, back when Resident Evil 2 was an upgraded version of this, and then 3 was an upgraded version of 2, they got so similar after Code Veronica that people demanded change. Matter of fact, the biggest game of all, Resident Evil 4, not only rated the best Resident Evil game, but the best game of all time when it comes to shooter genre, or even the PlayStation 2 era. It changed the series so much that they accidentally made a whole other franchise while trying to make Resident Evil 4 for the fans. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Devil May Cry series. It was accidentally made while making Resident Evil 4. That's how far and out they've tried to make the Resident Evil games different, because that's what you, the consumer, have asked for. I mean, well, we've talked about the history. We've talked about what games have come out lately. Some big ones that, personally, I'm one of the few people I've ever met that enjoyed Resident Evil 6, and my fiance played it with me. We loved it. I mean, it felt like a brand new take on it. I mean, you could play it, it didn't have zombies. It had zombies. It was an action shooter. So was the first Resident Evil. I mean, it had scary moments. I don't give a fuck what you do. When you're on that plane and you saw that one creature come out and start spewing the blue gas, and it turned everybody into the zombie, you're like, what the fuck are we going to do about this? And the plane started shifting. That was just as shocking and pulse-pounding to me as anything in the first game. But this isn't about the future games. This is about the original, Resident Evil. Like I said, personally, I love it. It's part of my beginning childhood as a gamer. It's one of the first games I beat from start to finish. I mean, if you don't include Resident Evil 2, which sadly I played first. Don't hate me. But nowadays, playing it, and I have played it a lot. You throw that demo at me, I'm going to be mad.
Damn it.
I have played it a lot. And these last week, you can ask my fiance, Rachel. Come here. Come here.
No.
I have played it non-stop. I'm at work, I come home, I play it. She's my witness. In fact, just to prove it, I'll even show my save game. I'm playing a second playthrough right now. And I'll show you what I'm up to. This is the world of survival horror, it said. You're now entering the world of survival horror. Good luck. So, if I go out here, I can show you I'm not in the beginning of the game. Look, hunters! Fucking assholes, I hate these fuckers. Oh look, yeah, this is totally a survival horror game. I feel weak and completely at ease over here. I feel totally threatened by these guys. I really don't. Because it was survival horror, it's puzzle, it's action. Just like the games nowadays. But does it feel the same? A lot of things have changed. It's gone from the complete third-person look as the camera's up in the corner to behind the shoulder, which to me wasn't that big of a deal. It improved it. That's one aspect where the newer games have over the original. Even though the original is what started it all, I gotta give the newer games for it. But of course, this game was so iconic, they've remade it 3 times for 2 different consoles, but while porting this one to different ones. Even with a total, complete, not just ported, not just remastered, remade version for the GameCube. Yeah, that happened. But when at the core of it, the game's horrible. As nostalgic, I love it. I always play it, but people still watch Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I fucking love that movie. Fuck you.
If you've seen it back then, you'll love it. If you have a warped, twisted mind, you'll love it. But if you're just watching a movie and you see it on cable, you'll probably turn it off by the Sweet Transvestite song. Speaking of Sweet Transvestites, it has one of the most iconic villains in it. Albert Wesker. My nigga. But in this game, he is not the trench coat, sunglass, evil tyrant that every other game has him as. And this, he sounds like this. Gee, Chris, I don't know where Jill went. Maybe you should go recheck the mansion. We will. That was Barry. Maybe you should go recheck the mansion and see if we can get out of here.
Voice acting sucks in it.
But of course, the game is actually notorious for its voice acting. It's horrible, horrible, horrible voice acting. Another thing, it keeps people coming back to it. But that's what makes the game so amazing. The game is horrible. And if it was released nowadays, it would be a big flop. But, thanks to the time era it came out in. It's amazing. So let's go off the first thing. Graphics. You can't see it pretty well right here because I don't have any fancy smashy computer recording software. Oh, son of a bitch, another fucking hunter. What the fuck? There we go, that's better. Don't hit me. I shoot you. I finger you.
Can I play?
No, you can't bait. That's a hunter. Rachel, seriously, stop it.
No, you don't.
Stop it, seriously. Rachel, I'm filming. I gotta edit that out now.
There you go.
So, the graphics, for its time, were great. For its time, were amazing. And it actually makes it playable, so I'm gonna give its graphics 3 out of 5. What can I say? The voice acting, any kind of acting. I know I said it was horrible. It was terrible. But, at the same time, they tried. You can honestly tell they tried. And as horrible as it may sound, it's still a lot better than some of the games we even had in the 2000 era. I remember a couple years ago playing the Far Cry 2 game. And even though it had great voice acting, the way they pieced it together, it sounded like you were continuously hitting the X button during movies. You know, you're just selecting any dialogue. It's like, hello, how are you? Oh, you need something to do? Well, I hear the Watchtower needs help. Oh, you don't know where the Watchtower is? Oh, it's over there. Go have fun. It's nice talking to you. See you later. I mean, it was all just one long run-on sentence. It was amazing. It was horrible. It's amazingly horrible. I love it. So, at least this game tried. Crash Bandicoot, the main character didn't even speak for obvious reasons. Alone in the Dark, even though it was actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for the first 3D polygonal game made. It's still horrible. So this game, even though it's horrible, it gets points for trying. 3 out of 5. Gameplay. Back at a time we actually had to make your own engines for games and code it yourself. It has a hard to learn gameplay style where, you know, up just runs you forward. You can moonwalk easily. Moonwalking. Love it. But it was original, and once you play the game for 5 minutes, you can now control the character any way you need to be. He's easy. So, gameplay, it's great. And even though the aiming system in the first game was horrible, I mean, you hold down the R1 button, you just raise your gun wherever you are, and then you have to turn to wherever the enemy is. That was bad, yes. But at least in the Director's Cut version, they fixed it. That's another thing I say about Capcom. Y'all keep talking about wanting different than wanting the same. Wanting different than wanting the same. But y'all always get it. Capcom has been bending over backwards for its Resident Evil fans for a long time. And I hate to say it, but I seem like the only one who's not pissed off by it. I mean, Resident Evil 5 was different. But at the same time, it was amazing. Because if you look at where Chris has been, it's a great improvement. So, altogether, we have graphics, gameplay, controllability, voice acting. Last thing is replayability. If you beat the game, would you want to continue playing it over and over and over again? Maybe not over and over again, but I know you at least want to play it one more time. maybe even 3 times if you're a completionist. Because the game is also filled with choices. Like with Chris. You can either choose to bring Rebecca Chambers with you, or choose to leave her there, which changes the course of the game. Or, if you don't want to play Chris at all, it was one of the first games to actually introduce a second protagonist with a complete, well, not really complete, but rather different gameplay style. Jill Valentine. So the game gave you choices, allowing for different playabilities. So personally, I give that a 5 out of 5 because it tried. It tried its damnness. Even as much as to make the second game so large it had to go on 2 discs. One for Leon, one for Claire. But the fucked up part about it is if you played Leon first and then Claire, it was linear. Then if you played Claire first and then Leon, it's fucking different. That messed up my mind when I was a kid. And for those complaining about how the later games 4, 5, and part of 6 didn't have zombies, just remember, Resident Evil was never always about zombies. Matter of fact, the second game was never even supposed to have zombies in it. The game Resident Evil was supposed to be about horrors built around a residential area. The second game was actually supposed to be about plants, even leading up to Plant 42, a boss in the Resident Evil franchise, the very beginning, being a prelude to the Resident Evil 2 game. It was supposed to be just plants taking over the city, basing it off the T-virus. And if you play the first Resident Evil game, the zombies are actually the weakest thing in the game. I mean, you fight zombie dogs, hunters, which I don't even know how to describe hunters. Anybody who's played this game knows what the fuck I'm talking about. I'll let you think about that for a second. Yeah. Now you know. It's fucked up. Once again, it's bosses. So straightforward. I'm not joking. When I fought Plant 42, I walked through the room. I saw him there. I went, and it swiveled up. I didn't even move. That's the game we all love. That's the game we keep comparing to Resident Evil 6. That's the game that we swear is so great, it defined gaming survival horror history. Still feel like you're on your throne now when you talk about it? Now, after you get done with this, think again about Resident Evil 6, Operation Raccoon City, Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil Dead Aim, Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, Darkside Chronicles, Survivor, Code Veronica X, Nemesis, all 26 different installments if you don't count, if you don't really care about the re-releases, because they released Code Veronica 3 times. The first Resident Evil, 3 times. Resident Evil 2, 3 times. PS2 and 64 and Dreamcast. Resident Evil 3, 3 times. So on and so forth. For anybody, any type of gamer, rail shooter, first-person shooter, there's a Resident Evil game out there for everybody. You should go check them out. On top of it all, I really honestly believe that Resident Evil, the original, holds up today. And as far as does it hold up to the world that it created, more so. It deserves a chance to be checked out. So that concludes my review of the Resident Evil. Well, at least the games anyways. I'm going to try to sit through Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, the movies, this week before my next week video. And try to give it kind of like a midweek video, because I know that's going to be short. I'm only rewatching them to make sure everything I say is fucking legit, because I hate those fuckers. I hope y'all feel appreciated for this, because I cannot fucking stand those movies. But next week we actually have a very easy one to create, an easy video, and it's easy video to create, but at the same time, there's a lot to discuss with it. The Mortal Kombat franchise. I have all 3 of them already downloaded onto my PlayStation. I'm going to start recording those and playing through those. I actually got a friend who's going to be joining me online for a live match during the show. And I know, once again, this is horrible because the PlayStation audio fan was fucking up the sound. I know the video recording sucks. You got that fucking annotation right here that says webcam companion. I'm kind of poor, so it's free software. I love you. Just saying. I love free stuff.
Yay!
I'm talking to my webcam app, nigga. I love free downloads. They make sure losers like me can record webcam videos. Good shit. So I'll see y'all next Wednesday. We're going to be doing Mortal Kombat. If y'all want, play it with me. I'll leave my gamer tag in the video. If anybody has the arcade collection, join me on there. Let's get some things going. Also, if you want, down in the comments, if you care for the 8 people who are going to watch this, leave a comment on what video game you want me to try out. Maybe it's something I've never played before. Offer some games. I'll go out and buy it. Try it. Play it out together. We'll talk about it. Well, signing off right now, my name is Atlas. Thank you for watching the Atlas Source. I'll see y'all next week.